Okay, sorry for the delay on this video here. I'm redoing the video because, well, for a number of reasons with the things I didn't like about the previous version of this. So we're going to kind of start over. I backed out the changes that I've made to the project to where I believe was where we were at the end of the last video. Just a quick review. We have a mod with some blank event handlers in here. We have the cited proxy being created, the part that has this will work because two of these CIS 452 mod will be created, one for the server, one for the client, and this proxy will be one of either the client proxy class or the server proxy class, depending on whether this server process or the client process is running. This will get stored into this proxy variable automatically by Forge when it starts up. So that's that part of it there. So the iProxy interface defines what the proxies do. The two proxies are both empty right now with nothing in there. We'll fix that pretty soon. Mod items, let me save that back out, is just a list of items that we've created. We also created an item base. And the item base and I'm not sure if this was the way it was last time. This register models might be something new. So if you don't already have that, make sure you have that. But it does two things here. The constructor, which saves the string, the name off in some places, and then adds itself to the mod items list. And then we have a registration method, which will call the proxy and say, proxy, please register a renderer for this. Now, when this kicks off, it's going to say a render for this. Where am I going to get this information? It's going to be pulling this out of some JSON that we will create pretty soon. And so we don't have that in there yet. But as we saw in class, we don't need to have that in there in order to get the item in the game. It's all about getting the registration of the model and the item. If we can get both those in there, the item will show up in the game without any textures or models. That's probably the first time where we can actually run the program and see something happen. Now, how does this happen? Now, I don't have any items up here created, so let me just create one really quickly here just to kind of get things started. Public static item, and this will be called cheese equals new, and this will be an item base. And item base takes a string name, which will be cheese, semicolon. Just creating the static item will be enough to kick things off. Now, I'll recall that the items and all the main data structures like items and blocks in the game will be created as singleton items. There will be one and only one cheese item in the game. There will be one and only one iron ingot. There's only going to be one dirt block in the game. These will be single items, and then anytime they appear to the user, you can have references to this. So it's sort of almost like a template, if you will, even though it is a real item. But references to cheese will all point back to this. So this cheese item doesn't exist in anybody's inventory, but when we add cheese items in the game, the inventory entries will refer to this object. So we just need to create one of them. And that's why it's static, and it's in part of mod items. So we can get it back out of this class at any time by just saying mod items.cheese. That'll work. We can also pull it out of this mod items list because the constructor, as we saw, adds it to the list. Okay, now the iHas model interface just gives us the model registration things. And I think we saw that item base implements the iHas model. Therefore, it has register models. But what's going to cause all this to happen? Well, we're going to have to add this piece in now. So we're going to have to add in some registration logic, some event handlers for registration messages. And it doesn't matter where we do that. I think I may have created a new package earlier, but I'm just going to create a class right here. And inside mod.util. And this will be registry handler. Okay. So make sure we spell it all correctly. It does not need to inherit from any object, does not implement any interfaces, doesn't have any abstract methods to inherit, but we'll just click it yes anyway, and we get the empty class. Alright, so this is the class we're going to fill in. Alright, now to make this class work, we're going to need to make this an event bus subscriber. So, and we did this in class, did the annotation @event bus subscriber. Spelling does count. We won't be able to import it until we actually put some parentheses around this so that it kind of sees what's going on. I hover over it and then I get the option to import it. So I'll import. Now I'm going to fill in the goodies in the middle here, which is really just mod ID equals, so it's lowercase mod ID equals, and then I just put in the reference dot, and I want the mod ID string. Okay, so that's enough to indicate that this class is going to be doing something with the event bus. In particular, messages that come across the event bus, we're going to want to look at some of them. Now, right now, we're going to look at absolutely none of them, even though we're a subscriber, because Forge just sees the annotation and says, oh, I wonder what messages they want. I wonder what events they're going to be interested in. It will look inside the class as a result of that annotation. And it does this through reflection, and it finds nothing in here, so nothing will happen. Well, we're going to put the something in here. A couple things I want to do here. Public static on item register. So this is going to be for item registrations. The name of the function or the method doesn't matter, but the on event is a pretty common pattern that's used in event-based systems. Okay, inside the parameter list, I want a registry event. Again, be very careful, spell registry correctly. Dot, and I want to use register. Now notice register has a little T in brackets there. It's a typed event. What are you registering? You're going to be registering something. So it'll be the top level type. A top level type is going to be item. Okay, so I'm just going to hit this, and when I complete it, it is filled it in wrong. Why did it do that? Because it doesn't know about the other. It only has a couple of types available. It only has one type that it cares about. Let's back and erase all of this. So if you do this, which is a reasonable thing to do, just to hit enter, clear all this stuff out, just so you have registry events in the angle brackets. These are the less than and greater than signs. And inside, we're going to put the word item. Okay, we're going to be registering items. And then we'll give the name of the event. Now, we have an error here, and that's because something's not been, it hasn't been imported. Sorry, I'm trying to hover over this, and I want to import net.minecraft.item. Okay, so by bringing that in, oh, I didn't give it a type, did I? That's kind of a problem here. This should be returning void. Okay, so we'll do that. Now it has. Now all the errors have gone away, so I need to add the open and close brace for the function. So it is a properly syntactically declared function, does nothing. All right, that's a good spot to start on. How will this get called? Well, right now it won't get called because the reflection won't find it. I need to tag it, and I say subscribe event. Now when I do that, it's going to come up, and I'll need to import it here. Oops. And so now it's okay. Due to this event bus subscriber, it'll know to look inside the class. It sees subscribe event and knows that the following function is going to be an event handler. What type of an event? It's going to look at the parameter to the function. They'll see it as a registry event for items. And says, okay, anytime I need to do item registration, we'll do that during startup. We'll go to each of the mods and say, please register your items. Because of this, Forge will know to call this method. And so it will just pass in an event that will basically say, register your items. The event, in fact, we'll go ahead and use this right now because what we're going to do is we want to register our items. Now, the items we're going to get out of mod items. This right here. In fact, let me just save this really quickly just to make sure it gets saved. So we have one item that will be inside the list as a result of this running. So that's where the item is going to come from, but how do I get to the registry? Well, conveniently, since this is a registration event, the event has a way to get to the registry. I just say get, and I want, you should say get registry, and have to take a look to see why it's not, I have the wrong type up here for the event. So that's one reason it should be registry event. When I erased this, I erased too much. Okay, it should be register item. Registry event dot register item event. Okay, now that works. Event dot, and I say get. Now we've got the ability to get registry. So we pull that in. This will give me an object that implements the registry interface. If I hover over it, it says that's iForge registry for items. Now I is an interface, just like I has iProxy and I has model, so it's one of theirs, and it's something that deals with registry stuff. Okay, so if I can use this to register, and I start typing the word register, and I say I register all, and some other stuff. I could register each individual item by itself, and to do so I need to set up a loop and then walk through my list. Easily done, but there's a shorter way to do that, and it's use register all. Register all will take an array of items. Okay, now this is going to be a bit of a hack, as I discussed in class. At least it looks that way. It's hardly hard to explain. I'm going to get rid of that suggested thing there. What I want is the array. Well, first of all, what I have to work with, I have mod items dot items. Items is a list. It's not an array. Now, if you go back and look at mod items, you'd say, wait a minute, wasn't items an array list? It just says it's a list. That's all we know about it. Technically, it was the implementation was array list, but that's still a list. It's not an array. And so we're not going to be able to put that in there and make it work. Our register all is flagging this as an error, indicating that it's not applicable to the arguments of list of items. Well, what can I do about this? I want to turn it into an array. Fortunately, if I just click on that list, I have a toArray method here. In fact, I have two of them. One takes no parameters and gives me a list of objects, and the other takes an array of typed items and gives me an array back of those items. Array gives me a list back. Looks like it gives me the parameter that I put in there back. That's kind of a weird way. It returns an array containing all the elements in this list in proper sequence. So looking at this syntax diagram here, I don't know that I agree with it really too well. It's not very clear. The text over here, though, is better. Returns an array, which is what I want, containing all the items in the list in proper sequence. Don't care what the sequence is. The returned array will be safe, and the reference to it are maintained in this list. The caller is thus free to modify the returned array. The method acts as a bridge between array-based and collection-based APIs. So we have an array-based API, and we have a collection-based API. Our list is a collection, and we're wanting to use it in something that wants an array. So we'll play toArray. Now, it's going to say, give me... This is where it's a bit of a hack here. All it really needs to know is what type to make the array. The difference between the two different toArray methods is that one returns an array of objects and the other returns an array of some type. It needs to know what the type is. The way we do that is to give it an object. To give it an array of objects of a certain type. And so I'm going to say new item, and this is an array of length 0. Well, that's kind of weird. an array of length 0. It's still an array, and that's all it really needed that for, was to know that it's a bunch of items. And so now we see the error's gone away. It's happy with that. This one line here will now take all of the things in mod items and send them to the registry. The reason this is a good thing to do, now we could have got the same thing done with a loop, but we had written a loop ourselves rather than using this one line. But the reason why this is good is that now all we have to do to add new items is to go back into mod items and just create some more. Well, so far that's what we would need to do. Now we're going to need to do a little bit more to add items in, but not much more. Creating this infrastructure is just helping us to make it easier to do things we're going to do somewhat frequently. All right, while we're here, let's make another handler. And again, this time I'll make sure I put the word void in there, and that's the model register. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter what the name of the function is, but it does matter what the type of the parameter is. Registry event. So this is a different one. Model registry event. I'll hover over it, and I get the option import. So I click on that. It imports it syntactically fine. Now we're going to do is so now the question that I sort of rhetorically asked before, as I said, gee, item base implements IHAS models. That means it has this register models method that's going to use this proxy. But how does this ever get called? Well, it's going to get called as a result of this model registry event. The model registry event will be sent to every mod that has, well, I better tell it to do that, or shouldn't I? Better subscribe to the event. Okay. It'll be sent to every mod that subscribes to a model registry event, and we'll get one of these events that will be, this is a good time to register your models. So this is where we're going to call the item model registration. Now, just a little forewarning in the future, we're going to have block models coming up soon as well, and those will be handled at the same place right in here. But for right now, I just need to, let me just back up here and say what we're going to do, and that is, I really want to do something like, say, item dot register models. Now, I don't have an item or any of those other things yet, but I just want to call it for each of my items. So let's build the for loop, and here's my item variable type item, and I'm using the iterating form of the for loop, which says here's a collection items, iterate over that collection, one pass to the loop for that. All right, now it's got a little warning here saying you're not using item. Okay, I get it. We're not using it yet, but that's obviously something we want to watch to make sure we don't inadvertently declare variables that we don't use. Now, I should be able to say item dot register models, right? No, it doesn't show up here because register models is not something that items handle. It's things that item base handles. But, well, what if I have other subclasses of item base, which I will in the future? If we start subclassing this, we're going to find that that those will have it as well. So maybe I should make this item base instead of item. That's a thought. But I think a better solution, a more general solution, which is what I want. Okay, we don't want to make code so specific that it only works in a few cases, and then find out that it prevents us from doing something else that we want to do later on. What I want to do is to allow my mod items, and this was done intentionally, that this is a list of items, not a list of item bases. Now, item base is subclass of item, so that will fit inside that collection, but so will a generic Minecraft item. We can create new generic Minecraft items that do not derive from item base, and they can go in here. So our registry handler will need to register things for them, but what's the difference between a generic Minecraft item and an item base? Well, item base, for one of the things it does, is it implements IHAS model. The generic Minecraft items do not have their model information closely associated with it. Okay, I think that's a defect in their object model. They have an item that contains item stuff, and then they'll have stuff for model stuff scattered out. We've collecting it all in one place, so you can deal with one object that has everything. So how do I handle this? I think I've sort of suggested that there might be a problem with just calling register models. Well, first of all, it's not there, was the observation. And I don't want to turn this into an item base. Well, what I'll do is I'll typecast it to an item base. There's two ways I can do the typecasting. I can, first of all, I could just do the typecasting and say with parentheses, turn this item into an item base, and then call that method. It'll do that, except that when the case is that it's a really generic Minecraft item and not a real item base, the cast will generate an exception, which would be uncaught here, which would crash the program. And so we don't want to convert things that are not an item base into an item base. Okay, so we could catch that exception, and that would get rid of the crash. That's kind of inelegant. We could there's a casting method where we could use it, say item as item base, and that will be type safe, because if you were to use that item as item base, the as keyword, you'd get a null reference if the cast couldn't occur. I like that a lot, but I'm going to show you another technique, because this is the way that I did it in the past here, and that is I want to use instance of. I want to say, this item that you just handed me out of this collection, is it an item base, or more importantly, I want to know, does it implement the interface that I'm interested in? Instance of, all lowercase, and I say I has model. I think this is the most elegant form here, because what I'm saying is this item some class that implements I has model? This lets me create other things, peers to item base, another derived type from item that has models, but it's not an item base. Now, I don't know why I'd want to do that, but still I don't want to close out my options. So casting everything to an item base would be limiting, but casting it to the interface type is, I think, the more general way of doing things. And so what I'll do there is I'll use two parentheses just to clarify things here. I has model. So casting is done by, this type of casting is done by putting a type inside parentheses and then a variable after it. Technically, the second level of parentheses isn't needed. I'm going to say it must be a variable. I'm looking at this and saying, you know, what I want to do. Okay. That's all it wanted to see, was that other thing there. I wanted to see if I had to import IHAS models. That's why I was hesitating there, because I expected the error. I thought the error was about this import, and it was really you didn't complete the rest of this expression. Okay, so that's all I have to do is I just say register the models for this item, and this will iterate all of them. Great, we're done on that. This is enough to get us going up to where we ended class on the 12th, February 12th. At least I believe this is. So what I'm going to do is, to test this, is I'm going to try to run this. And so I'll click on run and let it compile. And the Minecraft loader is coming up over here. I'll bring it up over here. And this is what we did in class. This is where we saw the item in the game with no textures. All right, so I'll say single player. I have a creative mode thing here. Creative mode, by the way, implements cheats automatically, so you don't have to explicitly turn on cheats if you're going to load creative mode. So here I am in the world. I can just say /give, and then I'll hit tab. And since it's a single player, it puts my player ID in there. The player ID changes every time, so I can't just use it. Note down here that we've got an exception here. There will be a few exceptions that will come in. This particular one here is a, I recognize this is an exception caused by too many attempts to, we're hammering on an authentication server, and we get an exception for that. This is something that Minecraft has always done, and I don't know why it's going to go, why it does that. Now, if I look over here and say, what's the name of my mod? I'm sorry, it's mod items, I think. Oh, okay. CIS 452 mod is what I was looking for there. Okay, so I just now it's given me a list of different things that we could put in there, but notice CIS 452 mod 1 : cheese, and there it is. What we can see here, oh, black sheep, is the item in the inventory. We see the magenta and black squares. That indicates I'm missing texture in the inventory. We can see I'm holding one as well, and I could look at, there it is in the inventory. It says item.cheese.name. This has not been localized. This is an example of an unlocalized name. Notice that when I hover over these objects, I get names that, first of all, start with capital letters, but are real names. This is an unlocalized name. This is what the item is registered inside the registry. And so I'll need to take that and convert that item.cheese.name into a real string in a bit. Okay. If I throw the thing, we can see the block form of it, also with no textures, nor does it have any particular shape. So it's defaulted all of this. So that's where we left off. So I'll save and quit on this. Get back out of Minecraft. And after thinking about this, I think I'm going to end this video here, since this catches us up with the last class session, and then I'll start the next video where we move on to fix some of this stuff, like get the models and the textures and all of that stuff working. And that's going to be pretty straightforward from here on out, but I don't think I want to do this as a in the same video.